Hello, I'm Chris Solo, and welcome to the Fabled 42, where we build community through friendship, gaming, and chaos. Today we are at Quests and Answers, where we go on a quest to find your answers. We're talking about the Rogue class here, about D&D 5th Edition, and with me I have one of our resident rogues, Eddie Gilbert.
Hello there.
All right. Eddie, let's talk about rogues, yeah?
Sure. As for most of you probably know me by now, I'm on the Wednesday nights Realms of Ukador playing our resident rogue Eclipse, who is a Tabaxi. Uh, he is actually probably the first long-term rogue that I have played in 5e. So this has been kind of an interesting experience, getting a chance to actually go from start to finish journey along that particular class. I've had having a lot of fun with it so far.
It's been a fun ride. As you know, I haven't DM'd a rogue before, so it's fun to create scenarios or manage scenarios with a rogue in the party. So
Oh, for sure.
it's been a fun experiment. So before we get into too deep with Eclipse, what were the characteristics that you chose when you picked rogue? You picked rogue for a reason, and then when you
Mhm.
nailed down what subclass to pick, like what was your process with that?
So, one of the main reasons why I ended up going rogue in the first place is that I've played a lot of magic-based classes, so I kind of wanted to change things up a little bit to try an actual martial class,
Yeah.
just because it was, you know, something a little bit different. I thought I'd kind of try. But one of the things that appeals to me about rogues in particular, and this was without having, any of the, mechanics and stuff behind it in and of itself. I've always kind of favored in general kind of the nimble and quick agile character over the let's hunker down and cover ourselves with armor
Yeah. Yeah.
character, which is kind of funny because the first character I played on this network was a paladin, but
Yeah.
that's neither here nor there. But one of the things that I really like about rogues in particular is that they have a really interesting element to them when it comes to their storytelling narrative. A lot of the other classes, I mean, you want to be a fighter? Yeah, I want to be a champion. I want to be a hero. I want to be the best. You want to be a paladin? I want to protect people.
Yeah.
You want to be a wizard? I need to study all the things.
Yeah.
What convinces someone to kind of go into the underbelly of a society to, kind of not necessarily follow, you know, legal paths and whatnot? It kind of creates some really interesting, narrative motivations to
Yeah.
take that path,
Absolutely.
especially like the thief in particular. What drives someone to be a thief? Is it greed? Is it, some underlying cause that causes them to, you know, take the path less chosen, so forth, so on?
Yeah.
So it seemed like it had a lot of potential for some interesting storytelling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's always fun when you get to that portion of the character creation, right? When you're finding out what the other party is going to be, whether or not that influences your decision on what class and what race that you pick. The campaign setting and all that. That, oh, is this going to be a political intrigue? Okay, yeah, I'm going to be an assassin then because
Mm-hmm.
it fits the storyline. Or you just pick
Right.
something because you want to pick it. So what? Looking at the classes and things, like what did you go with Eclipse and why?
So I was initially considering, I was kind of a coin toss between either going the assassin route or going the thief route. And I did a lot of research looking into assassin and some of the abilities that they have. And just narratively speaking, it didn't quite make sense because I actually initially, I mean, don't get me wrong, Eclipse is a very, you know, dark and troubled character. Uh, but he, it's got kind of one of those funny things where when you start playing a character, you have a very different mindset of the direction that they're going to go before you actually
Yeah,
start playing them and then interact with all the other characters and then realize, well, maybe I have them on the wrong path.
yeah, yeah,
And so that was kind of one of the reasons why some people, when they make a character, they have like their entire, career path, so to speak, laid out and whatnot. I tend to kind of go a more adaptive route where I
yes,
don't choose my archetype right away. I did the same thing even when I was playing my artificer,
yeah. That makes
you know,
sense. That makes sense.
but
Yeah,
I ended up going the thief route because given his backstory, and a lot of this has come to light now, he has a criminal background, and it made sense that given his The fact that he's a tabaxi, he's nimble, he's quick, he can hide in the shadows. He's a ideal candidate for someone who can get in, get out, and get what he needs. So the thief just made perfect sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've played a few different rogue types on the network. I mean, Baranor is a rogue. I mean, even though it's semi reskinned for the Adventures of Middle Earth to fit that, but mechanically speaking, he's still a rogue. There's a couple different abilities he gets. You know, I get to see ghosts before they come because I'm a Dunedain. But you know, other than that, he's still a rogue. And the interesting thing in that regard is there's a lot of different ways to play rogues, and that's what we're kind of leading into now. Is you can be the stabby rogue or the throw dagger rogue, or you be a bow rogue, which isn't necessarily the first direction that people pick. But being a a ranged rogue, you can hide in the shadows, you get advantage, you get sneak attack. You always have a tank in the party, you get sneak attack because you have an ally within 5 feet.
For sure.
Which is the interesting dynamic when my hand was taken, because I can no longer be a bow rogue, which was unfortunate. But let's talk about play styles, and because there's lots of different ways to play a rogue.
For sure.
Preferences on that?
So, the archetype of the rogue is, the dagger is, of course, the classic weapon of choice. You think someone who's going to be in an underbelly of society. Yeah, I got the knife. It's easy, compact, easy to carry with you, and doesn't get cumbersome running around with it. But from a mechanic standpoint, ranged makes perfect sense because it's a lot easier to get the jump on someone when they actually can't see you coming.
Absolutely.
And, when you're attacking from afar, it's great. One thing that, one other character that I did play besides Eclipse that had some roguish tendencies was when I played Skiff Clementine for both Mythical Melee and the Dungeon of Madness. Now, he didn't get a chance to utilize too many of his potentials in that time, so we didn't get to explore that all too much. But that being said, I ended up going the Inquisitive route archetype for him, which one of the cool mechanics of that is it's all about analyzing your opponent and being able to take advantage of their weaknesses.
Yeah.
One of the main things with him is, you can study someone and go, hey, I know exactly where your buttons are to push, so I can still get the advantage of sneak attack on you, even if you're staring me right in the face.
That's pretty
Which
amazing.
in and of itself is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those fun mechanics that it's so perfect in its making that even when something like that is so blatantly obvious, you're in front of this guy, but you still get sneak attack because there's another person there. So it's like you're fighting this guy and he glances to the right because he sees a fighter, and then you shank him really quickly, and you're like, where the hell did that come from, right?
Pretty much,
but it's not overpowered because it's only one attack, and without sneak attack, rogues are kind of like especially at higher level, like you have to have the sneak attack in order to be balanced.
Well, the one thing I will say
fighting anyway, yeah.
I mean, in terms of their damage potential, absolutely. I will definitely give you that. But one thing that kind of came as a bit of a surprise to me, because again, this is my first time playing a rogue from start to finish in this campaign, getting to see those feats as they come in, things like Uncanny Dodge and Evasion, just those two abilities in and of themselves, rogues are surprising damage sponges, which you wouldn't really think for someone running around in leather armor.
Well, but because they're dodging him, though. Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah. They are just so nimble that in and of themselves, they are just like, yep, my AC may not be as high as, my paladin or my fighter friend over here. However, can't touch this.
Yeah.
Can't touch me.
And it's always a fun direction when you go that way, right? And it's one of my favorite classes, right? So like Rogue and Bard are definitely up there in my favorite things to play. And you go with studded leather is always your bread and butter as far as armor. Sure. You daggers or bows, cool. Throwing daggers or just stabby daggers. Some people add the rapier dagger flare, or I've seen lots of different combinations of things that could work.
The rapier is definitely pretty solid. I mean, it's a D8 on a finesse weapon, which is in and of itself amazing.
Yes. So, and if you do it right, you take dual wielding feat, and then you get damage on that as well. So like there's a lot of fun things you can put in there. You take the alert feat, so we can talk about feats.
Your initiative is never below 20.
Yes. So let's talk about feats. I mean, we all know alert is probably the best one for a rogue because then you're the first one to
Hmm.
hit. There are some abilities with rogues like assassinate. I think if you're the first one to attack in combat, you get
Hmm.
like all this crazy extra damage plus sneak attack and all this other stuff. So what are some other good feats for rogues?
There's the what is it called? Is it the agile feat? I think is one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right name for it? I'm
I
slipping on it
believe
off the
so.
top of my
Yeah.
head right now, but that's another one that I can picture being particularly useful. I mean, especially if you're a tabaxi, like Eclipse is, a tabaxi rogue, you use feline agility, plus you add the agile feat on top of that. I mean, you basically have an almost limitless range of motion, especially when you combine with the fact that you can use your cunning action to do a dash as a bonus action.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, oh, you can't get me. I'm 60 feet away from you. Just kidding.
Exactly.
Wait, where'd
Exactly.
you come from?
Um, it's not agility though. I'm trying to find the
It,
agile.
it's I forget exactly what the name of the
Yeah.
feat is. I'm slipping on the top of my head, but
If you
it's the
remember
one that
or if you
increases your
know, you
movement
guys
speed.
can go ahead and add that into the comments down below, and we can definitely talk about it. Mobile, I think is what it
Mobile,
is. Yeah,
that's the one.
yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, it's like literally the instant I get asked the question, I my brain just goes blank.
exactly. Um, so we've talked about kind of the whys with like what you chose and everything else,
Hmm.
but what are some other things that you look forward to when you're playing a rogue, or you're 11 level 7 rogue now. What are
Hmm.
some things that you're looking forward to later on in your leveling?
I will definitely say one of the things I'm looking forward to, assuming that, Eclipse doesn't do something stupid enough to get himself killed before we reach level 20. Uh, the action economy for a rogue becomes insane the higher level you get. Especially if I remember correctly, I think it's for all rogues. Once you hit level 20, you basically get a free extra turn on the first round of initiative.
Oh, do you know what that's called?
It's I forget what the name of the feat is, but essentially it's during the first round of initiative, you get a turn at the beginning of the round before you take your normal turn.
Oh,
So I'm definitely looking forward to having some fun with that.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. I'll have to take a look at that. I don't even know which one
Hmm.
you're referring to. No, that's yeah. There's just like so many fun things that you can do with rogues. Have you ever played an arcane trickster?
It's definitely been on my list of things that I want to try at some point in time, but I have not had the pleasure of trying one. Actually, I think we had was Andrew the one who was going to try to do Arcane Trickster, I believe, in Origins? Or did he
Oh,
end up going a different route?
I think that was he was going to do that, and I played an
Yeah.
arcane trickster in a one shot. I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember which one. And it was really fun because like the spells, other than Firebolt,
Mm-hmm.
the spells I took were all utility. It
Mm-hmm.
was it was things that would help me be a better rogue, like Mage
Right.
Hand, Message, Minor Illusion, Control Flames. Like you can make it really dim and then come in and murk somebody.
Oh, for
Um,
sure. It's a
yeah,
complete
yeah,
change. It's a complete change from the difference between taking advantage of your environment versus changing the environment to your advantage.
exactly. I think I took Shield, which is awesome for a rogue. That's another way
Uh,
to like yes,
you want to make more ways to say, "Hey, you can't hit me."
yes. Yeah, and I think Misty Step might have been another one I took where I can get
Ooh, that would be
somewhere or
useful.
get
Yeah.
out of somewhere because then again that's a bonus action and I could still shank you, which
Mm-hmm.
means I could
Poof,
bonus
where'd you
action
go?
right
Stab.
behind you and then yeah, oh god, so many fun flavors with that. Okay, so now let's we've kind of walked around rogues and we've walked around things that you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you make any mistakes when building your rogue, or things that you took, or levels that you took, or subclasses that you took that you were like, I really didn't like this one. I wish I would have gone this way. Any of those moments?
I mean, I will say that there's a certain level of it being a bit of a double-edged sword when it came to taking the alert feat. The alert feat is absolutely like, don't get me wrong, getting that heightened initiative, being
Yeah,
able to have the opportunity to go first is in and of itself useful, except for when you're at the beginning of a round, you're going first and you have no clue what to do. and or you have an action that you would like to do that is dependent on something else happening, and so you actually kind of want to wait to see for something to play out before you go first.
Yeah.
So I mean, I wouldn't call that a regret per se, but it's definitely kind of this, it's this weird middle ground where it's nice to go first. It's also nice to not go first sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does, it gets really tricky too with holding actions, because you're like you're holding for a trigger to take a shot, you know, on someone, which would give you sneak attack if it falls in the right place. And there's just a lot of variables that you have to you know, take into account and try to figure that out.
For sure.
So as we've talked about, did we talk about feats already?
Yeah, we talked about
yeah,
the mobile, which we finally figured out what that was. Feat
Yeah.
being one that I can imagine being particularly useful. Outside of that, I'd be curious to play an Arcane Trickster, because I think if I actually dove into that a bit, that would change my mind about some other feats that could be potentially useful. Because I
Yeah.
can imagine you'd want to maybe even consider some of the magical feats to add in some additional cantrips or something along those lines.
Absolutely.
To experiment
Absolutely.
with.
And you know, speaking of adding other things, have you put any thought into multi-classing your rogue with some other class as you level up?
So for Eclipse in particular, I haven't entirely decided just yet, but thus far I'm getting the impression that he's probably going to end up sticking rogue throughout. I could be wrong. I don't like locking myself into something and saying this is how it's going to be.
A lot can happen.
Exactly, a lot can happen. That being said, I will say probably one of the most common, because of its effectiveness, that I have seen so far with rogues is combining them with fighter. Fighter rogue seems to be a pretty common and pretty powerful combination if done right.
Yeah.
You know, you get your multi attacks in, and then you sneak attack, and it could be devastating.
Yeah, and it's an interesting combination too if you do it right, because dex based fighters are nasty. They are straight nasty, and yeah, you may not get the 4 potentially 5 attacks if you don't take fighter all the way, but 8 levels of rogue, you know, you get a lot of sneak attack. I think at level 8 it goes up again, doesn't it? I can't remember.
Already at level 7 already I have 46. So I mean, and I think you're right. I think at level 8 you might get a 5th one. I have to double check that. I don't remember off the top of my head, but
I can't remember either. There's too much to
remember. You know, but yeah, speaking of dex-based fighters, that was one thing in Mythical Melee that Logan did particularly well. I mean, yes, he was primarily fighter, but I mean, even if he had thrown a couple of levels into rogue as well, I can imagine how devastating that would have been. And as an elf to boot, getting triple advantage on sneak attack, that's a devastating combination.
Yeah, and it's level 9 that you get the next D6.
9, that's right. That's what it is. Yeah.
So, you know, and it's an interesting thing too, because you get at 9 you get another rogue archetype feature, and then 10 you get another ability score thing. So, you know, 10 levels of fighter, 10 levels of rogue is pretty nasty. If you want to get, like, you know, maybe you have some weird pact that you make with someone, you take a level in Warlock.
Oh, yeah.
You 1 level in Warlock gives you 4 Eldritch Blasts at level 20. That's 4d10 force damage. I mean, it's pretty substantial.
I can't wait to see the Warlock class described on this, because honestly, that seems to be one of the favorite multi-class classes.
I think it's come up in almost everything. Well, it's because it's so versatile. Like, if you can find a good roleplay reason to add it, there's a lot
2 levels
of
things, Warlock will make almost every class better.
Yeah. And, you know, some you can even squeeze into a 3rd level in there, and you actually get to pick a patron. And you get some of the patron features, like if you take Book of Secrets or whatever, and you take the evocation that gives you more, all of a sudden you get 7 cantrips, and you're like, all right, cool. And I get Devil's Sight, because then I can see in any dark, and it doesn't matter. And you're like, okay, like,
for sure.
And I'm a rogue. Forget about it. Like,
but I mean, yeah, even as a rogue, I mean, you know, you get 2 levels into rogue. You know, you have your cunning action, and you know that in and of itself can be a drastic change to your action economy, especially if you're playing a class that doesn't have a lot of bonus actions. And you know, or you can do, like, you know, if like what I did with Skiff, got him to 6 levels in rogue, and that gets you your uncanny dodge, which is in and of itself also a powerful tool. Use your reaction to go, oh, you just dealt me a bunch of damage, half that, please.
I mean, it's It's ridiculous, especially if you have really good party members too. So like if you're a rogue that took a couple levels in Warlock and you have
Mhm.
Devil's Sight, one of your other players drops Darkness on a big bad, can't see you, you advantage on attacks. Wait, hey, what happens when you have advantage on attacks, Eddie? Oh yeah, sneak
Yep.
attack, because someone's just getting shanked in the dark and they're like, what's happening? And
I don't
yeah,
understand.
it's amazing. So we are at
Yeah, when you can
time.
deal 20
Yeah.
plus damage with a dagger.
Oh my god, it's ridiculous. So, in 30 seconds, what is your favorite subclass of rogues and why?
As much as it's a stereotype, thief. It's vanilla, but it's actually surprisingly powerful. But getting to use an item as a bonus action is kind of an amazing feat.
Okay, love it. All right, Mr. Eddie, where can everybody find you?
Y'all can find me at Discount Bard on the various social medias and on Twitch. Also here on Wednesdays on the Realms of Ukador as your local rogue, Eclipse.
Thank you, sir. So this is Quests and Answers, where we went on a quest to find your answers. If you liked what you watched, go ahead and smash that subscribe button down below. I am Chris Solo. You can find me at DM Chris Solo on all of the social medias, and we'll see you guys next time.